Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and this is going to be an interesting fight. We're here by the Bretonnian castle, but there is a northern invasion coming across the plains, and this is going to be Norsca just in the distance in the blurry outlines. On the battlefield that is called the Sword of Torgold, we see mammoths afoot, and a whole host of the northerners. So this is going to be a battle of myself against Indie Pride. I am fielding Bretonnia, he has Norsca over here. And the troop counts are pretty heavily in my favor, mostly because I have a lot of peasants, and Norsca, of course, can bring a lot of these big monsters. So let's go over kind of the rosters real quick. On my side, I decided to spread things out because I know he has a swarming force. I really wanted to be able to have a fighting retreat, so to speak. And so the way I'm going to be doing that is I have Bretonnian peasant bowmen, a couple of them being fire variants, scatter around my force. I have 3 in the back that I can start to deploy, and then I have another one here, and then I have another one here. So they're kind of mostly going to be the ones screening. And then at the very front are going to be peasant mobs. I have 2 of those. And then I'm also backing them up with just some knights errant. So they're going to be pushing forward along this front flat plain to seize the ground. And Indie Pride, as you'll see, is going to have a lot of foot troops, some spears, but if I can land some nice strikes with these big mounted knights on some of his berserks, I should be able to do significant damage. So that is why they're going to be up here to scout and kind of control, keep Indy back, and make way for my other lines. So what do I have behind that? Well, behind my front ranks of kind of charging fodder units and mobile knights, I have the second row, which is going to be pole arms. So men at arms with these big double-handed anti-large weapons, and battle pilgrims behind those. So these guys are supposed to be here to absorb the charge of big monsters. Behind that, battle pilgrims can charge in because I presume Indy's going to be throwing in berserks into this mix, so I want to have battle pilgrims nearby. And then to reinforce this, I have paladins and other troops. 2-foot squires in the center with the Grail Relic holding down the center, and then I also have this nice unit in reserve, the Beast Slayers of Bastogne. So these guys are freaking awesome. They're some of the top tier infantry you can get, and they have bonuses here. You can see armor piercing and bonus versus large. So I was hoping to bring them in once the enemy was tied down with their monsters and allow them to clean that up. Same thing with the Knights of the Lion Hearted here. They have bonus versus large magical damage. And so yeah, lots of knights held in reserve as well. I brought a big variant. And then also over here, this is pretty cool, the Wardens of Montfort. So these guys are missile cavalry that can do poison attack. And I wanted to do that because I knew, well, it won't let me show the poison ability. But anyways, I brought these guys because they were going to circle around, and I know Indy's going to get stuck in a fight, and it's going to be a prolonged melee grind. I wanted a unit to run around and consistently penalize his melee stats. That's kind of it. And like I mentioned, in the back, a lot of these knights, the companions of Quenelles, looking awesome with their green barding here. Looking very cool. And then the very, very rear is going to be 2 blessed trebuchets. I knew Indy was going to be bringing some giant war mammoths, and so I brought 2 of these. Didn't necessarily need to bring it for the magical damage, but I thought they were kind of cool. This battle is more for fun. I probably should have skimped out on some of the magical abilities and brought an extra regular trebuchet. But in any case, Indy is still over on his side. Let's take a look at his build. He's got a screening force of Marauder Spearmen, I believe 4 of these guys. Yep, here's the 4th one. Just behind that, he's got Marauder Hunters with Javelins. So these guys, this is a very nice screening force against Bretonnia. That's going to beat back most of your cavalry. Spearmen you don't want to get caught up on, even though they're weak. It's just not worth your trouble. And especially with anti-large javelin throwers behind them, he can do a lot of sweeping operations. So my counter to this was to kind of throw in peasants to tie them down, and then use archers to start picking away at these guys, because clearly they have pretty low armor. So then he's going to move up with his first ranks, and then in his core, he's got, I believe, 6 of these Marauder Berserkers spread out with one of the elites, the Brutes of the Hound. And then he's got a couple mammoths in here. Put this on slow motion. I'm trying to bait out some shots. Did take a little bit of damage. But he's got Wulfrik the Wanderer charging forward, as well as a Skin Wolf Werekin. And he's got 2 more mammoths in the center. It's Soul Crusher, one of the regiments of renown. And then over here is going to be a War Mammoth with a War Shrine that's going to be able to buff up his guys. And then in the back, he's got some Norscan Ice Wolves to chase down my cavalry and tie them down. And he's got even more Marauder Champions. These guys are the heavy armor variant. So pretty nice build here. And it's slowly going to be moving forward. And he has a couple Skin Wolves. Looks like one on the left flank. And these are going to be great for charging after enemy cavalry. But now that my, we can put this on play, the opening stages have been set, I'm moving forward with my archers. And I'm just going to start taking some shots at these Skin Wolves. I'm going to start doing fire damage against them, and it's going to start chipping away at them. A lot of his guys are coming after me, the Skin Wolf, and we have to look at this guy, because he just looks super scary. with the rest of the skin wolves as well. And so they're going to come after my peasants. This is the stuff of nightmares. But for me, it doesn't really matter. The peasants are here to essentially tie down the enemy. So I'm going to charge back in with my peasants, and they're going to be sacrificed to hold back these skin wolves. God, this guy is freaking huge. And yeah, they're going to get torn to little shreds, but that's fine. The only purpose of that was to hold the enemy down. I'm going to charge in with my knights errant to try and hit his skin wolves and prevent these guys from continuing to pull through and hit my archers. I'm trying to have a staggered retreat, so one of these bows is going to be firing into the mix. But more of his guys are coming around. I've stationed some cavalry around the rear because I want to be able to threaten and hit the back of his forces. I really want to take out some of these marauder javelins before they get in range. I tried to scoot around this flank as well, but his Norsca ice wolves were enough to beat me back, as well as this Wulfrik unit here. Having this guy as a mount is super powerful for Wulfrik. Of course, he loses his duelist ability because he's just kind of sitting up here in his throne, but it's a nice trade. So yeah, the center is being held down, and then I'm firing with all my blessed trebuchets. Let's watch this at the war mammoth, the one with the big shrine here. So a couple of shots are going to start to destroy his guys, but at this extreme range, not going to have that good accuracy. And on top of this, these mammoths have a lot of health, so really not much damage being done there. But here comes the main charge. I'm going to continue to pull back, and I'm going to charge into here with some knights errant. Again, trying to slow down his skin wolves. Not going to be trading very well, but that's okay. It's just buying time for my archers to fire in here. And I also throw my paladin, and now I'm going to focus fire with all my blessed trebuchets against this much closer soul crusher mammoth, doing tons of damage. And I'm also going to throw in more peasant mob to tie this down. And we're starting to do a pretty good amount of damage. I also have the Grail Relic here to tie it down, and then I have men at arms. So this is going to hold this force back. But meanwhile, the crush is on. This flank I'm not too worried about. I have cavalry in the rear that tried to strike at his units, but Indy turned around with a whole host of skin wolves and other units, caught me flat-footed, and caught my knights errant. So that threat to the rear has been dealt with. And meanwhile, here comes a charge up through the center. The peasants have been destroyed, and now here comes Wulfrik plodding on through. He's going to go after my bowman, and I'm going to start to target it with my wardens of Montfort to try and poison it. And then I'm going to start to prepare some other units that can charge, and the beast slayers and other forces are going to have to get ready. On the right flank, I'm kind of trying to slow Indy down with cavalry just sitting here, but I really have to pull them back. In the center, his units are starting to take some damage. My paladin's doing good work, and Indy's going to try, and I believe, send in more reinforcements here. He's got spears in the back that I've been able to charge somewhat with my knights errant. Not super effective, but I'm going to be able to commit a couple more guys. And over here, I'm swooping around with wardens, and they're going to be just mass targeting his guys, trying to deplete them, or sorry, trying to poison them. Over in the center, Wulfrik is going to be charging forward. I do send questing knights against here, bonus versus, or sorry, armor piercing, and he's going to pop all sorts of abilities here on his forces. So this is going to tear me up. Unfortunately, my beast slayers of Bastogne are a little bit out of range. They would love to take on Wulfrik. I'm going to try and heal up my forces, and this engagement is precipitating so much damage. I do throw in some Grail Knights in here to try and deal with these guys, but these armored wolves are doing a lot of damage. Backed up by Soul Crusher, it is chewing through my forces. Meanwhile, over here where my knights are engaged, Indy's going to roll up with these Marauder Huntsmen, really nicely protected. And they're going to absolutely shred. They destroy this questing knight. So they can clean up anything that tries to deal with Wulfrik. So those are nice supporting units. And he's got a good surround on them on all flanks with spears where I can't quite get through. I did come and knock his forces about here with some Battle Pilgrims and Grail Guardians. And then I have some cavalry in the rear. The companions here are going to do a nice hammer and anvil, and then hopefully turn back and hit his center. So once you do have room to maneuver with Bretonnia, you can start doing these actions, and this is what I'm going to need to do to really turn the tide. But in the center, he's continuing to crush. I'm throwing everything I can into this mess, and somehow these skin wolves still alive. I haven't been able to send in the right counter. My halberds have been depleted. And over in the center, Marauder Spearmen have pushed all the way through. Archers have been firing the entire time, and this Soul Crusher is still at very high strength, taking all kinds of fire here. Let's hope it's going to be enough, but the tide is really not looking like it's in my favor. And these skill wolves crushing it. My god, I did not have the appropriate counter for these. Meanwhile, this center blob is super powerful, and this War Mammoth is coming in. I'm starting to turn the tide on his units in the back. Wulfrik is coming back in to deal with my Grail Guardians, but I should be able to hold out fairly well. Maws of Savagery here, Skin Wolves, Regiment of Renown, are doing a lot of damage actually. So I'm going to try and pull out of here and go after his center force, but look at how it's shredding my guys. High Tide is coming in even closer, and I have Battle Pilgrims that are trying to be boosted by the Lady. I do have some spare knights that can get around the flank, and we're going to get a nice charge finally right through his skirmishers. We're going to hit him from the flank as well, but my numbers are so depleted that they can just stand about, and they do pretty well in combat. And here comes the big war shrine. It's going to charge right into my forces here, and look at these guys. They look freaking awesome. The holy wardens, these guys have fire damage and magical damage. So I'm going to try and collapse in on these brutes of the Hound. I've sandwiched them from both sides, and let's see what these guys look like. These amazing Battle Pilgrims almost look like Jedi from a distance. They're going to be doing pretty well against these Marauders. So finally going to chew into some of these clusters of infantry, but Indy's got even more guys to get around my rear. My bowmen are continuing to fire, and I've beat back Soul Crusher finally, but she really helped push through the center. I am somewhat holding. Battle Pilgrims are reforming. This Marauder champion is going to be committed, and he's going to do pretty well, but I do have the Grail Relay coming here to hold, so my rear position is going to be okay at this point. Still have some ammo, and now we're going to shuffle back around and try and hit Wulfrik. But this force here that was surrounding the enemy is going to have to deal with two incoming guys. You got the War Mammoth standing on the side buffing up his own units, which I'm trying to fire at, but it's not really doing anything. And then Wulfrik can come back in at any time. But yeah, so we've actually collapsed this force. Man, these Holy Wardens are doing really good work, although they are starting to take some friendly fire. But this full-strength War Mammoth is going to close in on my forces, getting even, nearer to my rear lines. Oh, and here comes... Turn around. You got a giant mammoth chasing you. So she's going to cast some spells, try and heal up. And the fodder units, my halberds, are going to try and get in here to slow it down. This mammoth's taking a lot of literal fire from all my bows, but it is just shrugging it off. This thing is a walking tank. And it just tears through my halberds. And here comes this amazing Sea Fang ability that Indy just popped. And it just crushes my guys. It's pretty good against weak unarmored forces who have taken some HP damage. And here comes the cleanup crew, finally going to commit against some of my trebuchets. In the back here, we are kind of starting to clean up the enemy with my Beast Slayers of Bastogne. They weren't able to deal with the monsters, but they can kind of hold their own against some of the enemy Marauder Berserks. And these guys, the Holy Warden, seem to be doing excellent. I am trying to go after his little infantry blob here, so I may be able to clean up the rear. I do have some cavalry, and if my forces can hold here, we may be able to turn back against the mammoths. So Indy's main pride and joy here is going to be these two mammoths and reinforcing champions. And oh god, actually, take that back. He does still have the Skin Wolves, and these guys are going to be really, really devastating. I have to turn around these pole arms, but it looks like they're going to be caught flat-footed. Let's watch the charge. Oh my god, in slow motion, that's awesome. Just barreling into my guys. And they're going to tear me up. We even have some point-blank shots with my trebuchet. I do have a final cavalry unit that was waiting in the back. He's going to charge in against this force. Wulfrik is pretty low, so I'm going to get in. Indy spots that this is a pretty big threat, and he's going to try and send in his Skin Wolf and pull out Wulfrik while my Grail Knights were trying to pursue him. I could have maybe slaughtered him, so right now they're going to gang up against the Skin Wolf, and I'm going to notice that, hey, I really have to pull through and deal with Wulfrik. If I can get him to rout, that could help out. Everything is focus firing on these last remaining mammoths. They're really low health. They're reeling, so I'm hoping that I can turn the tide. If I can get this nice little morale victory and still have artillery up and running and still have cavalry running about, we can start to turn this around. But what ends up happening here is that he saves them at just a low health. And oh god, I'm not doing enough damage. I'm trying to heal up my forces, but the Fey Enchantress is going to be tied down by those Skin Wolves. And oh god, I can't heal up these green Grail Knights in time. And they're going to start to rout, and they're also going to get reinforcements. This War Mammoth here took so much damage. And I'm trying to fire. Looks like more units are going to try and come back in the mix. We're going to shoot into it. Both these heroes super low. But with that, my knights are sent running. So that is the last hope of Bretonnia here. Two War Mammoths in the back lines amongst peasants. You know how that ends. And now they're going to go on a bit of a rampage and just chew through my peasants. Now it's easy pickings. I'm trying to see what I have left. Looks like the Growlithe is still alive. But there it goes, it routed. So Indy finished up killing me. A lot of good work. Oh, this is an awesome final cinematic. A lot of good work being done by his mammoths, and they took so much damage. I really didn't have a good way to counter that, and you could obviously see that in this battle. I didn't have the greatest counter picks for most of his monsters. In the early game, peasants were trying to tie down his forces, and it worked. It bought me some time to fire in with my archers, but they just didn't do enough damage to the point where that delay didn't really help too much. He pushed through, did a lot of damage, and then the skin wolves came in and with a one of the war mammoths just tied down my right, soaked up a lot of fire, and allowed a lot of his cheaper, weaker berserkers to push through unmolested by anything. And it was a really good mix as well to bring up his kind of like a mobile center core that was really protected javelin men, and they just hung out in the middle of his line, which means that any charge I get on with his cavalry, those guys just move up, respawn, and pepper you. So it's really hard to get at the center of this force. I think what I could have done better was swap out some of my peasants and delaying forces for anti-large units, try and go for more quest knights, and I think instead of going for those bowmen, I would have done better with maybe 2 more, you know, swap out the blessed field trebuchet and just bring 4 regular trebuchets, and those guys just focus on targeting the piecemeal components of the enemy foot troops. Just tear them apart. Deal with his anti-cav units, and then start pinpricking the elite infantry. And once I get those guys out of the way, then I can run roughshod through the rest of his force. Because, yeah, the monsters are powerful, but once you can get them isolated by killing the rest of the army, then I think they're easy to deal with. What Norsca really wants to do is what Indie Pride did, get you to focus on the monsters, have them tank it out, and then allow their army to come in, as we've been saying, unmolested, and I did not counter that. So Norsca seems like it's going to be a really powerful faction that you have to think carefully about how to counter. Let's take a look at some of the final stats that I have here. So I brought almost 3,000, Indy brought 1,700. We have about the same men remaining, but he has many of the Frosted Men to the north. Lots of kills. Wulfrik on his War Mammoth with 206, this Skin Wolf with 71. And the Berserkers here doing work, 155, 165, 107, 75, and 51. And the Champions as well doing lots of work. Most of that against peasants and scattered bowmen. But I mean, they have that frenzy ability where they can just ramp up and do more damage and trade more cost effectively. So Indy did just that. The Skin Wolves, 3 of them. Oh, actually had 4. 3 armored and 1 Regiment of Renown, doing amazing work, and then the backup forcing doing lots of damage. So all in all, everything trading super effectively. Like I said, on my side, you didn't see much damage being done by the archers. I would have happily traded a couple of those, a couple of my halberds for more trebuchets. They did okay, but the Grail Guardians did good work. I should have invested in more high-tier anti-large cavalry. I think that's what you got to do against Bretonnia, or sorry, against Norsca. Don't give them a fodder force because they're built to chew through that. Bring a really high tier army, and I think the Fan Enchantress, if you do that, will fare much better because then you can just heal up already powerful units so that the sustain on them can be that much better. So yeah, there's some interesting things at play here, but I'm sure the meta will be sorted out in the weeks to come as people start to play this online. Anyways, it was a very fun battle. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And the map itself, again, was the Sword of Torgald, a very fun one indeed. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. And obviously, check out Need Pride's channel where he shares lots of cool stuff as well. Great commentator, great multiplayer guy, and he does great lore videos. So check him out. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.